Hi everybody, welcome to Beers with Jeff here in October. Again, we're continuing our stretch where we are interviewing legislators from the legislature, and we're going to ask them a little bit about what's going on in their world and where they're coming from and how they got here. So in that vein, we have Representative Matt Koleszar, representing the 20th District of Northville and Plymouth and parts of Canton as well. Also, to put it out there, we should tell this might be a more fun conversation. Matt and I independently know each other.
This is true.
We've been friends since college, and we maintain a relationship today. We're both in each other's weddings, for that matter.
Yes, we were.
So this should be interesting. So Matt, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself? Maybe just give us your background, what were you doing before the legislature, and then what ultimately drove you to run to represent the 20th District?
Yeah, absolutely. So for 12 and a half years before I was a legislator, I was actually a public school teacher. I taught high school social studies and English, graduated from Saginaw Valley before that, where we both went to school. And, I moved to Plymouth Township in 2011. My wife and I got married in 2016. And one thing for me is public education is very much at the heart of what I'm the most passionate about. And I felt that our public schools weren't necessarily getting the best deal from Lansing. And I wanted to run to advocate for our students and teachers and really our public school communities as a whole. And that drove me to run. And, lo and behold, I ended up winning my race, and here I am.
Mm-hmm. It was a good party when you won a race, actually.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was a good time. So that actually leads to a pretty interesting question. So you ended up on two committees.
Yes.
Health policy and education policy. And so so for at least this term, you're sticking to the policy side of issues. What interests you about the policy side of what's going on?
Well, I was a social studies and English teacher, so math scared the daylights out of me. But truth be told, I love the idea of looking at the abstract. You look at big ideas and you think, how can we take these big ideas and truly make people's lives better? What can we do to benefit the people of Michigan? And those conversations are where you get started. And I think what's been unique in our system of government right now is we're divided government. So the two sides have to talk to each other. And I think that's proved a lot of good stuff that we've seen here. And I think we're going to see a lot of good stuff moving forward because of that atmosphere right now.
So I think just one of the important, what has been the most interesting thing you've ran into on the health policy side? Obviously that's where MHP, we focus our work. So when you're thinking about health policy, when you're in those meetings, 10:30 every Thursday, you've been here for 10 months or so. What's been the most interesting thing that you've really sunk your teeth into?
You know what? It's ironically, it's very recent. In fact, we have a hearing on it tomorrow. It's this effort to eliminate surprise billing. I can't think of any worse situation, especially for a family that maybe doesn't have a lot of money. You have a surgical procedure done. You think, okay, my insurance covered it, I'm in the clear, and then all of a sudden you get a bill a few weeks later for a couple $1,000s. And you come to find out that, oh, well, maybe the anesthesiologist or maybe a certain doctor was out of network, and you had no way of knowing that. And all of a sudden you're sitting in the situation where you owe this money and you can't afford it. And the fact that the legislature is looking, it goes back to what I said before, making people's lives better. We're looking at a way that we can eliminate surprise billing for Michiganders. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think you co-sponsored the bill.
I did.
Right? There's
actually both bills.
Both bills, yes, there's two. I always forget that. The one thing I would say from the MHP side is these both have comprehensive protections, and that's the one thing we've been focused on. And I think, we've talked about the four areas, one being, does it take the member out of the middle, most importantly, which is exactly what you're talking about, is the protection. We can't have a situation where a member's at an inability to negotiate because they don't know how to negotiate with these doctors. It's difficult for those of us who have been in this business. It applies to all insurances, HMO, PPO, all the different types of insurance. There's also an adequate payment standard set, and I think that's set very, very well in the bill. And perhaps most importantly, we can get to a situation where we can really incentivize both parties to negotiate, and that becomes kind of the critical aspect of this. Is our insurers, and we want to get people a network. These doctors probably want to get a network too. We just got to get ourselves talking in some way, shape, or form.
And I think it's important to point out. Everybody's kind of been at the table, that you have a lot of experts across, whether you're talking providers, whether you're talking about insurance companies. It's also bipartisan. You have one bill by Representative Houck, a Republican, and the other one by Representative Liberati, a Democrat. So when you have multiple sides all coming to the table and saying, let's do something here and let's make it right, let's do a good job, I think we're seeing that result, that this is something that Michiganders are really going to be happy with. I mean, I can't think of any worse situation, especially if you just had a surgery that maybe was difficult on your body. You're just trying to rehab at that point.
The case we're going to bring forward tomorrow involves a $5,700 balance bill from a member that was in a network hospital, but maybe better things. Let's talk something more interesting. So the other side of what you're working on is educational.
Yes.
And being a teacher, you have a unique insight into what's going on in the education system. What's the number one thing you're working on over on that side?
Right now, the biggest one for me is I am on a literacy package, actually a school libraries package with Reps Camilleri and Pagan. We've had a lot of conversations also with our chair, Representative Hornberger, about getting a hearing on it, and I'm optimistic. But what it would do is it would guarantee a school library and school librarian at every school in the state of Michigan. We rank 41st in literacy. We rank 47th in the country in certified school librarian to student ratio in the country. And there are a lot of studies that suggest there's a correlation there. When you give kids access to a library and access to somebody to teach them how to properly access information off the internet, as we know, it's kind of the wild, wild west out there right now. This gives the opportunity to really help we have a major literacy problem in this country, but more in the state in particular, and we have a chance to really do something beneficial for kids, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm hoping we get some movement on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally libraries are good, right? I mean, these are good things for students to have access to books.
And on top of that, Plymouth Canton Schools actually does that. I kind of use them as the model. We have school librarians and school libraries at every single K through 12 school in Plymouth Canton Schools, which is the 5th largest district in the state. So as a result, we do see a lot of good results for kids out of that. And that model is something I use going forward. I talk to the superintendent of Plymouth Canton all the time, and it's one of her things she loves to brag about.
So why don't we change style a little bit here? Well, I guess any other issues you want to work on, you want to bring a light to for your constituents?
I will talk about one that's been a big issue for mine since I got here, and that's a bill I've been working on that would guarantee free tuition to any surviving child of a police officer or firefighter who lost their life in the line of duty. Here in Michigan right now, we have that, but the problem is if the surviving family makes 400% of the poverty line, which is about $97,000 a year or more, they're not guaranteed that benefit. My bill removes that 400% restriction based solely on the fact that, look, somebody gave their lives protecting us. The least we can do is honor that memory by helping out their children. It's got bipartisan support. I had 12 Democrats come ask me to co-sponsor, and I had 9 Republicans ask me to co-sponsor, including the majority vice chair of appropriations. So that's the committee it went to, and I'm very excited about this bill. Now that we're finally starting to wade our way through the budget, we can get on to some other things.
Yeah, time to start talking policy, right?
Absolutely.
And luckily you're on 2 policy committees, so you can talk policy.
Absolutely.
So I think it'd be something fun to introduce here, and because you and I know each other, this I feel like a good fit. I feel like it's a good time to just do some round robin questions.
Okay.
All right, just off the wall. These will have nothing related to do with anything. So I think question 1 is, how many penalties did Trey Flowers actually commit on Monday night this past week?
None.
Well, that's obvious.
No, okay. First of all, and I know there's probably a lot of people watching this that are Lions fans, and it was a very frustrating night. My issue was when there's a pass interference that's not called because the guy's got his arm draped across our receiver, that doesn't get called, but this hands to the face that never got called when he was in New England is all of a sudden called. That's not right.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So let's try some other ones. If we could bring back the T-Rex, should we?
If we shouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't want to be driving down the street with it like standing next to me, but if it's I don't know if I'm going to go full Jurassic Park because we know what happens there. They're going to get out, and then we got a big problem.
Well, you got to build the fences.
Well, yeah, but the electricity is going to go out.
That's true. We got problems. I think, so if you could go back in time, let's say 15, 20 years, what would you ask your younger self or tell your younger self?
Don't sweat the small stuff. It's funny. I told my students that a lot too, where I'd see them sweat stuff, and I'd say, I know this seems big now, and I know to you this is a big deal, but just understand that you're going to look back on that and be like, why did I worry so much about that? I think that my thing is don't worry so much.
Yeah.
Just do your best, do with what you have, and as long as you have good intentions and you're working hard, things will work out.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a funny answer for that.
No, I didn't. That was a more serious question. I figure if we ask the more fun ones, we get to the serious stuff. But ultimately, I think the other thing we should put out is we took a beer here. We didn't put it out. La Roja, I believe it is. It's a sour aged in oak barrels. So going between the mix of beer and whiskey as we did in the last interview. But anything else here you want to give to us or want to give to your constituents?
I think above all, it's important to note for my constituents, it's all about accessibility. And I'm always finding ways of being accessible to my constituents. We're talking 2 coffee hours a month. We've had already we've been involved in 3 town halls already. We actually did our legislative door program where we actually just go give people updates, and that's all it is, or we hear what their concerns are. And we actually got to about 19,000 doors here in the off year. And I would continue to want my constituents to know I am so accessible. I want to make sure. That's why I do things like this too. Any way we can, just so they can understand that their rep is working hard for them, and that he's an easy guy to get a hold of and not hard to find.
Yeah, you're pretty easy to get a hold of. I could say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know,
but
you may have my phone number. So.
yeah. But I think we really appreciate you coming on here today. This was a lot of fun. It sounds like you're working hard for the people of the 20th district. I think back to when you were running. I think when the election was over, you posted a picture of your shoes. Your
Yes.
and they looked like they had taken a rough go.
They really had.
But all in good, all for good, right? You got
Yeah,
elected.
absolutely.
You're here, and now you're working hard.
And it's an honor to serve them, and that's the biggest thing, is making sure we are serving our constituents and making sure that their needs come first.
Well, we appreciate you coming on today. Thanks again.
Cheers.
See you Sunday.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. And thanks everybody for tuning in again.